Manyavar presents CNBC TV 18's Indian business icons, leaders, trailblazers, radicals.
Yeah, I was born in Lahore, and immediately after I was born, I was the fifth of 6 siblings. Immediately after I was born, we shifted from Lahore to Ambala, and that's where I began my first school. And I remember that at that very tender age, I didn't want anyone to accompany me to school. I wanted to walk it alone, and I used to look back over my shoulder whether somebody was following me. So that's one event that I remember very clearly of my very early age. I shifted many schools because my father was in a transferable job. I must have shifted about 5-6 schools in 5 cities. And I remember one episode where I was confronted with a challenge. I was shifted from Delhi to Ambala, where Punjabi was a compulsory language, and the exam for the board, 8th class board exam, was just 3 months away. So I had to quickly prepare myself to be able to write my exam in Punjabi, and what I did was to write the alphabet on a supplementary sheet and then began to construct words and sentences and managed to get through. I thought that was a great accomplishment. And nobody helped me in how I would get going. I generally was an all-rounder in school. I played all sport, and I had a reputation that despite playing till the sun was set, I would still do well in school. So my parents were always confident. But sometimes I had to pay heavily for it, because to keep up that reputation, I had to burn the midnight oil. And my family, after sunset, you were not allowed to study. I was told that if you study in artificial light, your eyes, would not function very well later on. But the tragedy is I still have poor eyes, because I used to cover at night with a quilt and have a table lamp inside and read, so as to keep up the reputation that despite playing the whole day, I was still coming out with flying colors in school. My father was very keen that I did BA, MA and appeared for the IAS. But I had 2 cousins in IIT Kharagpur who I hero worshipped, and they used to pass through our home during their vacations, and one of them, the elder one, was a boxer and also an architect, and he gave me a book to read, Ayn Rand's Fountainhead, and that was about the architect. And I think he fashioned himself, in the main character. So I wanted to go to an IIT, whereas my father wanted me to appear for the IAS and do the government job. So much so that ultimately my father wasn't very happy. He did not know what an IIT was. So I appeared and I passed and joined IIT Delhi. It was only after I qualified as mechanical engineer that the real challenge began, because those days there were no jobs to be had. Many people, after passing their IIT exams, went to IIMs. The trend of doing B.Tech and then going for a management degree started then. And many of my friends went overseas. My father had retired then, and he was paying for my stay at the IIT, and my younger brother was in IIT Kanpur. So he was really paying for 2 of us in our education at the IITs. So I couldn't afford to ask him for one more expense of going overseas or to studying at the IIMs. So I started hunting for a job, and it was not easy. The first interview that I got was from a sugar mill in Jagadhri, and within a short period of the interview having begun, we entered into an argument, because they asked me to draw an iron carbon diagram, and they asked me various eutectic points and composition of iron and carbon, and I told them, look, I don't need to remember it because it's always available in the book, so why should I remember it? And there was this argument that you have to remember it. So I failed that interview, and I was very disappointed that even if a sugar mill would not qualify me, then where would I go? So I started preparing for the IAS, and I thought it would please my father along with a few colleagues, and one of them has, just a few years ago retired as a secretary to the government. He was also in my class. So during my final year, I had written an application for Imperial Tobacco because it was on the notice board that you could apply for jobs. And after I left college, one day a friend of mine who had got left behind because he could not qualify the same time as I did, he found a letter in my name in the pigeonhole, and he brought it home and said that there is an interview for you at the college campus. So I went there, and I found my scooter broke down on the way. I was a little bit unlucky. I landed there late. So when I got there, we had a placement officer called Commodore RHD Singh. He told me that the interview was over and he was taking his guest from Imperial Tobacco for lunch. So everything was over and I could go home. And I started arguing with him. I told him, look, please, give me a chance because my scooter broke down. He did not relent. But Keki Randeria, who was the personnel manager from ITC, Imperial Tobacco those days, he heard my, imploring him in this manner. He said, no, I will interview this young man. So he took me in. The first question he asked me is, why are these windows shaking? And I was so keyed up. I thought he was asking me a question on theory of vibrations. So I took a sheet of paper and I started explaining to him how vibrations are caused. And he looked at me a little bit surprised and said, no, I don't understand what you're saying, but I want to know why is it shaking. So then I told him that there is a compressor in the basement and that is not completely balanced, and that is what is causing it. Then he got chatting with me. He said, what are you doing? I told him I'm preparing for the IAS. What are you reading? So I said, I'm reading the Third Reich. And he was very interested in history. And he was an ex-Air Force officer. I think he took a liking to me. And I found that I was the only one that was picked up for the next interview. But the interview call again came at the same address in my hostel address. And the same good friend of mine found it lying on the floor and brought it for me. And that was the first time I traveled by air, went to Chennai in a place called Tirupattur for my next interview. And after the interview was over, I left. And it so happened that these people went to the branch manager and said that we found this guy, found him okay. So he said, he rang up the deputy chairman in headquarters in Kolkata and said, we found our man, and he told him, put him on the next flight. So he called these people who interviewed me and said, just call him and put him on the next flight. They said, but he's left. And lo and behold, there was a pandemonium let loose, because in those days, nobody had the courage to tell the deputy chairman that after having told you that we found a man suitable, and after you asked us to put him on the next flight, that I should call you back and tell you that I'm sorry, he cannot be put on that next flight because he's gone. So the 4 heads of department were sent, one to the airport, one to the railway station, and one to a place in a colony where I told them during the interview that I was staying. and the other gentleman was, I think, sent somewhere else. And he was going from door to door and asking a question, is there a guy like this who's staying here? And ultimately they had to ring up my father, and they found out, got me. Next morning they put me on the flight to Kolkata. And the beauty is that when every time they wrote to me, the subject of the letter was pupil. And I always resented it, because I felt after, doing Bachelor of Technology from IIT Delhi, this pupil thing was somewhere a little bit infra-dig. You go back to the classroom. So I used to write back with the subject management training. So after, when I got ultimately selected, a letter arrived which said management training. And I was really happy that finally the penny has dropped and they figured out this guy is worth much more than starting life again as a pupil. But when I landed up in Chennai at our factory in Tirupati, I asked people, what is this pupil and what is management training? And I was told the difference is 15 years. Pupil is a covenanted cadre that normally people were picked up from the UK, is a covenanted cadre, and management training begins as an assistant foreman, then foreman, assistant lithographer, and then assistant manager. And the pupil starts as an assistant manager. It's about 15 years. So I thought this was a travesty of justice, and I did it to myself. So I did not join, and I told them, look, I'm sorry, this is what has happened. And ultimately the branch manager was away on a foreign tour, so the branch accountant who was officiating, he called me to his office, said, look, I am now on a call to Calcutta with the assistant to the deputy chairman, who's head of personnel. And then he told him that the young man is saying that he was to join Murphy Radio, and he has burnt all his boats behind him, and this is what has happened. He always wrote management training, and we wrote to him pupil. He's got all his letters, and he doesn't want to join because there's a difference of 15 years, he says. So I remember his words. He says, Mr. Aibara says that forget about burning your boats behind you, you are on an ocean liner. The reason why we have called you management training, because this is a new place, printing is a new technology, and there is a printers guild here. They will not let you learn, they will not teach you if they thought that you would end up as their boss. So we've given you the salary of a pupil, but I said no, memories are very short, and I took that risk without any jobs waiting for me anywhere. I said no, you give me half the salary, but give me this pupil who gets confirmed as assistant manager. So ultimately they gave in. They gave me this pupil designation, and then I started from there. So the rest is history. I made rapid progress. I was 28 when I became the head of that factory, and at 31 I became the head of that division. There were only two divisions in ITC then. One was a tobacco division, the other was a printing and packaging division. And one day I was called and asked, would you like to run the hotels division? And it was, beyond my imagination that an engineer running a packaging and printing business, who's spent his early life under the machines, is being asked to run a hotels business. The reason was that our first Indian chairman, who had initiated this diversification into hotels, it was his baby, so to speak, and he was very impatient, and he had run through all who's who in ITC. They had been to the hotels division and somehow he found that, they did not fulfill what his expectation was. So I was asked at the age of 36, whether I would run this, and I said yes, against much advice that it is a graveyard. Don't go there, because actually our competitor Ajit Kerkar, who I met first time in Goa, he said, how long are you here for? Because people don't stay very long in this business. But anyway, I spent 8 years in the hotels business. So anyway, that's what happened, and that's where I began to contemplate as to what is really fundamentally different between running a packaging business and running a hotel is different, and how human being is an integral part of the product, and how training and development is a unique source of differentiation. That here the service is produced and delivered simultaneously, and that the commitment and the emotional balance of the service providers, the human beings, are as extremely important as their skill, and consumer orientation is extremely important. And that's how training and development became a key focus of ITC's hotels businesses. I joined ITC in 1968. In 1973, a discipline of management by objectives was initiated into ITC as a whole. This was a planning discipline where you planned at the company level, at a division level, at a unit level, at a department level, at an individual manager level. And I think I was picked as a management advisor at a very young age. And that laid open to me some principles of management. I was helping other departments and units, so much so that I became a MBO advisor for the headquarters of the company. And that experience clarified a lot for me as to how the clarity of objectives is very important in their accomplishment. How identifying key result areas is extremely crucial. How framing policy to set limits or guidelines for managerial action, how it is so important for everybody to know and for you to define it. How action plans and allocation of responsibility is important. How competitive strategy is crucial to delivering results in a competitive environment. And these principles of management are applicable to any business, and that you can think through from basics, and you can mobilize managerial resource or specialist talent in any of the businesses around this basic process of thinking and planning. I won't say I struggle too much, but in IIT they don't teach you management very much, and my early readings therefore in management, and supplemented by this discipline of management, when you sat with different managers in helping them make their results guides, and helping departments to make their departmental plans, and units to make their unit plans, and divisions to make their divisional plans, helping them frame policy, helping them to eliminate contradiction, helping them to make up their mind whether it is this or that, helping them to do the SWOT analysis, uncover what your strengths are, identify what your weaknesses are, identify what your opportunities and threats are, and how you then frame a competitive strategy by doing a similar thing for your competitors. So I won't say that it was a lot of struggle, but it was a new discipline, and I had a eureka-like feeling that it made me able to, or at least the fear of moving from one business to another business. So when I was asked to move from one division to another division to run that division, which was, poles apart. One is a service business, right, and one other is a manufacturing business. I had that confidence that the basics would be the same. There would be a consumer there, there would be competition there, there would be resources to manage, there would be people, there would be objectives, and there would be framework of guidelines of action, and so on and so forth. And you could mobilize your resources, your strengths, and you could exploit the opportunities that lay ahead. So with that confidence, I did manage to turn around our hotels business, in a significant manner. I stayed there for 8 years, proved Mr. Ajit Ketkar, our competitor, wrong, that I was there, for how many days or months. So after that I shifted to another division, the tobacco division, and then I was thrown another challenge. Late Shri Madhavrao Sindhya once asked me whether I would like to come and run Air India, and he said that he had the vision to do to Air India what in Maggie Thatcher's era, Malcolm Marshall and Lord King did to British Airways, to totally revamp that airline, privatize it, and make a national carrier of which everyone can be very proud. And that really excited me, because there is in every bone of mine there is patriotic fervor, and I was quite happy to, but I told him that I'm wedded to this company, and I'll have to check with our chairman whether I can be released. And when I got to Kolkata to tell our chairman that this is the proposal that has been given to me, I was told, go and tell him you can't do it. So I said, look, this I can't say, but if you can't release me, please, I will go and tell him that you can't release me. So I went back and said that, they tell me that I am in line of succession, so I cannot be released. And he was really upset. He says, I read your chairman's statements that you are developing human resource for the country, and I'm only asking for one man. So ultimately they had a meeting, and it was decided that I will go on a Lion to Air India. And I went through those interviews and so on, and I landed there. And in 91, from 91 to 94, I ran that national carrier. It's a totally different business, running out of 65 countries. It was a very big challenge. It was a very big challenge. Indeed, Mr. Sindhya resigned within a short period of my having gone there. And he told me within a month of my landing there that he had a word with the Prime Minister, Shri Narasimha Rao, and he says you can only dilute equity to 5%. So he had a hearty laugh. He said, if I had told you this earlier, you wouldn't have come. So there I was to save my reputation. I continued. In 93, it was the most profitable among IATA carriers. Air India was the most profitable. I have to say that the people in Air India, I found lots of talent. I found that public sector has a lot of good talent, but we sometimes interfere too much in their affairs. Their compensation structures are not very good. We don't give them enough freedom. So I think they rallied around me, We produced a crore a day profit, and the person who brought me into Air India was very happy. The next Civil Aviation Minister was also very happy. And then came a call from ITC that if you don't come back, then succession will be decided. Our overseas shareholder was looking for, I did not know it then, they were looking for somebody who would replace at that time, the incumbent chairman. The incumbent chairman looked for somebody from like me, because he felt that there was, environment is not very right inside ITC. So I came as a consensus candidate. And then after that, there was this huge battle with the overseas shareholder, battle for control. They wanted to take over this company, and I was a mere professional. So they were the major shareholders, other than financial institutions who had a larger shareholding together. Their view was that we should focus only on cigarettes and nothing else. To some extent, our track record in diversifying was not very creditable, and there was general opinion that ITC's diversification was not successful. But that did not mean that we should not have diversified. It only meant that the way we managed it should have been different. So there was a conflict of vision for what a company like ITC should do. My view was that ITC should really evolve into an engine of economic growth for India, and it should be a national champion, and it should enter into multiple drivers of growth to make a large and growing contribution to the Indian economy. And that it was possible in an emerging economy if you had two primary strengths, that of human capital and financial capital, to be able to build other strengths, to be able to deliver multiple drivers of growth. So this conflict was there, but they wanted, obviously, to in a liberalized economy, they wanted to get into the driver's seat, and so there was a conflict. And as a result, somebody, they hired a local consultant who showed them the way to the dirty tricks, and they used FARA law, and they got hold of people to whom ITC had exported and got them to write various things. And even during transactions, that when I was away to Air India, they inserted my name in there because they wanted ultimately to get rid of me. But I was confident I had never done anything wrong. So I felt that it was a worthwhile cause to fight for. And I did fight. I had a small minority within ITC that would secretly help me. Overtly they would not, because they all felt that I was a mere bird of passage, because I wouldn't survive this huge pressure from a major shareholder from overseas. The media was with the overseas shareholder because they had put into operation their public relations machinery, and people were writing articles against me and against the company liberally, accusing us for various things. And so one fought one's way through. I have to give credit to my wife and my kids, who did not flinch. They said, yes, I was doing the right thing. And ultimately destiny played its hand. It helped me. Some of my friends helped me. And I have an interesting episode. One day I went to the enforcement director to explain to him that this was a takeover battle, And all this, this FERA violations that people are talking about and this smear campaign is only a strategy to discredit us. So he told me, no, but Mr. Deveshwar, I am told that you have millions of dollars stashed away and that you have many farmhouses outside Delhi and so on and so forth. So I came out, and there is a journalist friend of mine who was an editor of a very known paper, and it was Business Standard. So I don't mind naming him because I think he gave me very good advice. I asked Mr. Nayanan, I told him that this is what he's saying. His first question to me was, Yogi, do you have such hoards of money? I said no. He said, no, not millions, lakhs or thousands. I said no. He says, then what you do is you write a letter to the enforcement director authorizing him, what he humorously called letter yogatory, and says you give it to him and say this authorizes you to look at any accounts anywhere in the world. So I went the next day to him and said, since you said this, here is a letter. And he said, are you sure? Because this can be very detrimental to you. I said, yes, I am absolutely sure. And I said, I also want permission from you. Could I have it published in a paper so that if anybody else knows who can help you to find these, they would help you. He told me later on, that day it changed his mind. It became crystal clear to him that what the conspiracy was, to get me out so that the company could be in the hands of the overseas shareholder with the help of the local person, the dirty tricks department. So as a result of which I think I got helped, and they had in ITC, in the board, taken a resolution that if anybody is detained under FERA, then he would step aside. And the idea was that, the local guy would be persuaded to detain me for a day or two, and then the field would be wide open for them to move in. But it so happened that I had managed to convince the enforcement director, who had left instructions that in his case, you can't detain him unless you prove to me that you have evidence. So the local man was very unhappy that I can't find anything, and this is what have you done in Delhi that I'm required to produce this evidence. So this is what happened, and the investment banker also came to me, who said, I worked for BAT during that time as a profession, but I take my hat off to you that you stood up, because I was told one day that they will take you in one day, and it didn't happen, so that it will happen the next day. But I just come all this way from Bombay to tell you that while I earned my fee from them, my heart belonged to you. And I'm proud of you as an Indian that you stood up. So this is how it happened. They told me that the people who are working from BAT, you name a country, we will give you international experience. So I told them, look, I've just run Air India. It operates out of 65 countries. That is much more than you have done yourself. So don't tell me about international experience. So I want to run this company, and you already voted against me, so don't worry. So this carried on for a while, and I must say that I am very happy that despite even the media being against and the dirty tricks department being against, the institutions stood by me. All this while in ITC, we had two businesses, tobacco business and a packaging business, then came a hotels business. Then during Ajit Narayan Haxa's time, we diversified into a paper business. Paper and hotels were very capital intensive, and ITC was not producing the kind of profits those days to support two capital intensive businesses. When he retired, the next chairman started his own sets of diversification. We went into edible oil, we went into financial services, we went into restauranting abroad. Then the next chairman came along, he went into international trading, we went into information technology, and so on and so forth. So we got into a number of other businesses, and these businesses, ITC Hotels was spun off because our overseas shareholder did not want money spent in ITC Hotels. So this hotel was spun off and people were told whatever you can earn you can invest, and that was actually a not a practical thing to do, because if ITC could not invest, then that little fledgling business could not have. So as a result, by the time I became chairman, we had a number of challenges. Our paper business was on the brink of defaulting to the financial institutions. We had a retrospective excise duty demand on us of 803 crores on a company that's bottom line was only 250 crores. We had our hotels business that was, had no resources to go anywhere. The financial services had gone sick. ITC Classic, from a share price of 1300 rupees, had gone to a single digit. There was a crisis all around. Our overseas shareholder had, with the help of a local consultant, launched a public smear campaign, discrediting Indian management. It was a takeover bid, basically, so that the Indian management is discredited and they would take over. And they wanted their own man to head this company, because in the earlier years they did not invest in ITC every time there was a public offering, because they didn't find in India was an opportunity. But once liberalization took place, they suddenly felt that there was an opportunity and they wanted to re-establish themselves as the drivers of this company. And of course, as I mentioned to you, that I felt that Indian companies as organs of society should really be aligned to national objectives and to subserve national purposes, and that we should be in businesses of the future. So the first challenge before me was to clean up the portfolio of businesses, those that were not going anywhere, to pay for them, close them. I felt that hotels and paper were businesses of the future. They were core businesses, one for tourism, other for education and for packaging for consumer goods. So folded them into ITC back and grew the information technology business, grew the agri business, and began to focus on the fast-moving consumer businesses. So the rest is history. We have a portfolio of businesses. The notion that you can only run one business at a time, which is a philosophy that we have borrowed from the West, from mature economies. We have worked against that principle. We have said that it is possible to both focus as well as derive unique sources of competitive advantage from a diversity of business enterprises, because diversity also gives you some unique skills that you can bring to bear and create a strategy that is unique to yourselves. And that's why I find that ITC has, to a naked eye, They are all diverse businesses. But if you ask me, this diversity provides some unique sources of competitive advantage for ITC. That is one reason why ITC is succeeding. You see, what I see, for example, let's say example of our packaged foods business. Now, our chefs interact with the Indian palate. Now, India is a subcontinent. They interact with the Indian palate every day. Who could be better placed than them to formulate your food product? Our competitors don't have such a resource. We have hundreds of chefs who come into ITC as trainees, and day in and day out they develop this specialism, and they deal with the taste buds of people, they deal with materials, they create dishes that people find delightful. Our hotels business is known for Indian food. So that source of competitive advantage. Otherwise, the kind of brands that we have built in a foods business in such a short time is unparalleled anywhere. You name me one example from any country in the world where so many successful brands have been created in the food arena. Now, some of our journalists, they offer comments without knowing anything. They, on the one hand, with Snapdeal and with Flipkart, where they produce no profit, actually incur huge losses. They say there is great valuation, this is a business of the future. But here, we are creating newer brands, newer categories every day. So the value that we are creating is huge. So you can't have two yardsticks, one a valuation yardstick for somebody else, right, and a profit yardstick for somebody else. Yeah, profit yardstick is good for businesses that are matured and that have been there for the last 100 years. But the new businesses, we're creating value. Last year we were already 8,000 crores of FMCG business, all greenfield. You name me any company in the world. See, the valuation of ITC, if it was to go by only a tobacco valuation, if you see the tobacco companies' valuation around the world is much lower. What people are valuing really is the future. Now, packaging business, I can tell you, ITC would not have created the kind of products without the kind of high quality packaging that only we are able to deliver. And the quality of paperboard that we are able to deliver. And the kind of paper that has established the Classmate brand. Nobody, in a short time, Classmate brand, you ask students anywhere, Classmate brand is the rage of students. So this is work in progress. This is work in progress because we are building a national champion for the next 100 years. The brands that we build in India are going to create, capture and retain value in India. We don't have to pay any royalties for brands overseas. And they are a pride of India, the Indian brands. We have invested hugely in research. We had only 40,000 square feet of research, which we called research. Today there are 400,000 square feet where we have got scientists from all over the world doing original work. In the last 5 years, we've already filed 329 patents. And this is we have just begun our work. A journey of 1,000 miles has just begun, because our vision is to create a national champion with brands that people will be proud of, with intellectual property. And one day these brands will go overseas and earn royalty from outside by licensing them to people outside. And we are creating employment in India. A major thing that we have done is this triple bottom line. We are the only company in the world that is water positive, by twice an amount of the emission of carbon that we emit, carbon positive and water positive and waste recycling positive. And we provide a source of livelihood for more than 6 million people. So it's a business model which really is looking at a long term. It's not something that we are looking for tomorrow. It is creating a new India, right? And I can resonate very well with Make in India, that we have to create employment for people in India. So today we have 60 projects going on all over India for the expansion and growth of I2C. And that's why we have set ourselves a vision, 100,000 crores of FMCG business in the next 15 years. So I won't be there, but my countrymen and the youth in our country will be there to take advantage of this company. We're proud of this company, and we will create intellectual capital that will capture value for our children, our grandchildren, and one day maybe my grandchildren will come and seek a job in I2C. At 28, as I mentioned, I was a factory head. At 31, a division head. At 37, on the board of I2C. At 44, chairman and managing director of Air India. And at 49, chairman of I2C. Now, every time my colleagues and even my seniors would, after a while, began to report to me. Now that was a challenging exercise, and you were always sort of on test, because you had genuinely to be delivering value for the company, to be deserving, for people to accept you. As it is to accept a colleague to become a senior is difficult to stomach. But be your senior and then accept your junior to go ahead of you is more difficult. So to that degree, I suppose it was a challenging exercise. Yeah, I won't say that I was always popular. I had transient periods where I was going through this transition when I was not very popular. But after a period of time, people wouldn't be unhappy working for me, because it would be rewarding. Because if a business that you run begins to grow, then people also begin to grow with it. One of the best formula for motivation is to create a success experience and to grow. Because if you create a success experience and then you grow, then many people grow with it. You open up opportunities for people. But if you don't grow, you're stagnant, then they may like you as a person, who's not, sort of superseded them or anything. But in the long run, it's it cuts a sorry figure. My wife has always been a great source of support for me, because she's very much more accessible. She's actually she's not very hierarchy conscious. Even now today, she wouldn't know who's senior, who's junior. She deals with people when she meets them as people. So people are quite comfortable, I think, with her. And I'm glad that she was always a calming influence in an environment where there was competitiveness, there was some stress as a result of a young person going forward. I also had the advantage of some mentors who early in my career helped me, gave me confidence. It was not only one piece of advice, it was a matter of style. a matter of values, a matter of analytical skills, about listening, about being sensitive to others, about being consistent, about being apolitical, about dealing with issues and not dealing with about people, about transmitting self-esteem or helping people to gain self-esteem in building teams, in accomplishment. Yeah. See, credibility comes from your track record, and then your continuous engagement with people brings them on board. It's not something that happens like a switch on or off. It evolves over a period of time. It is not that one day we said we will do triple bottom line, but we always said that we will be an exemplar. We will be an exemplar in sustainability. Now, you cannot deny that as an objective. The question only comes when it conflicts with your commercial results. If you begin to focus on sustainability, whether you're going to deliver the returns for the shareholder. So to that degree, I suppose you can do all this if your business model is creatively constructed and you are able to focus attention on the short run, medium term and the long run simultaneously. Very many people forget the long run, but the long run has a habit of becoming a short run very soon. So we built on that foundation and slowly transformed the company. And today 60% of our net turnover comes from businesses other than cigarettes. And in the future, it will be, in the next 5 years, it should be more than 70%. And hopefully that each of our businesses will be a world-class market leader in the Indian global market, and that we will have an occasion then to go overseas and earn money for India from overseas and create value. That I'm hoping that we will create much more value for India, create many jobs in India. As I mentioned to you, we have on the annual 60 projects. We have a vision of 100,000 crores of fast-moving consumer goods business. We have research and development. We've got almost 329 patents that we have filed in the last 5 years. ITC had barely ever filed a patent earlier. So we're going to create intellectual property. We are going to create science-based differentiation. We are going to make India proud. This company is going to be a national champion one day. And most people, most households would be using our products with pride, and that we will compete with the best of international companies in India. People say work-life balance. I mean, work is, even my wife says that I'm sorry you worked so hard and we've enjoyed life. But I let her say that, but only when if she hears this interview, that I really enjoy my work. So I let her feel bad that I work hard. But actually I enjoy my work. I enjoy the creation. I enjoy the opportunity. In ITC, professional managers never get to create a business. People move from one bank to another, just grow up in the same business, never create anything. But in ITC, professional managers have created new businesses from scratch, from the first brick, what we called entrepreneurial managers. So, and we've grown so much, so many people have benefited from it, so many farmers have benefited from it. I once visited location, a tribal area, where we have done a watershed program, where they had very little irrigation for their land. They could barely get, one sort of crop. But after we created water resource available, they could get 3 crops, and they could increase the amount of area. So when I went there, those people still had those bows and those toddy collection vessels, and they laid it at my feet. You'll be amazed, I cried like a baby, because they felt that I was, they said, please give us a school here, do this for us. I told them, we are not government. We are only a company, we're trying to do our best. But that touched me, that a company can do so much more, but whilst doing it in the context of your business, while growing trees, while helping them grow trees, which is used later on when we buy from them for our paper business. We do all other kinds of empowerment program with them. So they grow the size of their wallet. One day they will also be able to buy our products. So it will become a synergistic operation.
Manyavar presents CNBC TV 18's Indian Business Icons, Leaders, Trailblazers, Radicals.